Hello, Dr. Joe here of the drjoe.com and the 2020from.com. Recently, I got asked a question regarding beans and weight gain. The question was, do beans make you gain weight? Implying, do beans make you fat? I was a little bit taken aback by this question because beans is one food that I used in my weight loss journey, and beans did help me tremendously. Indeed, today I still use beans to maintain my lean body mass, and it's working for me. And I think this also works for millions of other people. However, food is a complex subject. Different metabolism is different. Even though it worked for me and millions of other people, there are going to be people who will struggle with food like beans. So I felt I needed to tackle the subject today. So in this video, what's going to happen is I'm going to give you a quick overview of beans, a very quick one. And I'm going to discuss some variables that you should be looking out for when it comes to beans and weight gain. And we also need to establish whether beans is actually responsible for the weight gain. And once we've established that, I'm going to give you reasons why that may be happening, and eventually I'm going to give you tips on how to deal with any weight gain that you may experience when you consume beans. So let's get started. The first thing I want us to look at is briefly the macronutrient composition of beans. And as you can see here, beans have high protein content. Beans have moderate amount of carbs. Beans have very low fat content. Okay, and that's one reason why I love beans. The fact that they're high in protein, moderate amount of carbs, and very low amount of fat in them. Indeed, if I were to be exiled to a desert island today, and they say, well, Dr. Joe, we're going to exile you to this desert island. We want you to take just 3 foods with you. I can tell you that beans will be one of the foods I will take along with me. Yes, I love them that much, and I trust them that much to give me that nourishment that I will need in a place like that. So that's the macronutrient composition of beans. Next, I want to talk about the glycemic index of beans. Briefly, beans generally have low glycemic index. And of course, we've got different types of beans. All right. And that means the glycemic index is going to be different between the beans. And when I had a look at the International Glycemic Index table, what I found was that the glycemic index of beans, of the different types of beans, span between 20 to 40, and that's fairly low. So that's not bad at all. Okay, so that's one important feature of beans, because with that, beans are unlikely to spike your insulin levels. So that's good. Next, I want to talk about briefly is an important feature in beans, which is the fiber component. And as you can see here, beans have plenty of soluble fiber. Beans have plenty of insoluble fiber too. And beans are an excellent source of resistant starch. Resistant starch is indigestible, so it doesn't contribute to the calorie content of beans. And that's good. That's an important feature of beans. And that's why beans do help you to maintain your body weight, and also help you lose weight when you're trying to lose weight. So this is why I love beans. But this feature feeds into the next thing that I'm going to talk about, which is a nice and valid question. And the question is the weight gain from the beans a true weight gain? Why do we need to answer this question? Well, if you noticed in the last clip, I talked about how beans have high insoluble fiber content. Now, when you eat beans, that insoluble fiber is going to be calling for water, because fiber is water loving. And of course, when you feel thirsty, you're going to obey the command and you're going to drink. And when you drink that water, now the insoluble fiber will be sitting in your large intestines, your colon. Now, if you imagine 2 pounds of insoluble fiber sitting in your colon, now you've drank all of that water, the fiber is going to soak up all of that water. So all of a sudden, 2 pounds of insoluble fiber will probably become 3 pounds. So what do you think will happen when you weigh yourself? Of course, you're going to be 3 pounds heavier. And that is not your true weight. Okay, that is what I call pseudo weight. And that's the reason I advise people that before you step on the scale, make sure you've done number 2. Make sure you have moved your bowels. Because whatever is sitting in your colon, at that point in time when you weigh yourself, is going to contribute to your weight. And that is not your true weight. That's just pseudo weight. But it will upset you all the same. So that is one question that needs to be answered before we talked about beans being responsible for weight gain. Okay, so we have established that indeed you're gaining weight from the beans. Now let's explore the reasons why that may be happening. The first thing we need to look at is how you are cooking your beans. Now, are you somebody who uses lots of salt when you are cooking your beans? Don't forget, salt attracts water too. So you have a situation where the salt is going to attract water and the insoluble fiber is going to attract water. And of course, when you weigh yourself, you are going to be heavier because you have water retention. The next reason is, are you cooking your beans with sugar? Now, this may sound a bit far-fetched to some of you, but you will be surprised that people love to eat sweet food and they will add sugar to their beans. Indeed, of course, there's a commercial product out there, baked beans, that's got sugar in it. So the idea of adding sugar to beans is not really that far-fetched if you think about it. So if you're adding sugar, that could also be contributing to your weight gain because sugar is a high-calorie food. Another reason from the cooking point of view why weight gain with beans may be happening is the oil that's been used to prepare the beans. Are you somebody who uses oil? Lots of people do. There's no doubt about that. Some people use ghee, some people use lard, some people use butter, some people use palm oil, some will use olive oil, canola oil. People use all sorts of oils. Now, what you need to remember is that all the oils, they are all high-calorie foods. And the more oil you use, the higher the likelihood that you're going to gain weight from eating beans. Is this all beginning to make sense now? A fourth reason will be, what are you eating the beans with? And this is very important. Now, we're all very guilty of eating our beans with flour-based products, and flour-based products will make you gain weight. And I'm referring to things like bread, buns, baguette, roti, tortillas. All of those are flour-based products and they're all high-calorie foods. And of course, some people also eat their beans with pasta. Of course, pasta is another high-calorie food. So when you eating high-calorie foods along with beans, the beans is not really so much to blame because you're getting contributory calories from the other foods. And that does not help in any way. Okay, so now that we know the reasons why we may be gaining weight when we consume beans, let's look at how we can deal with the problem. So I'm going to give you 7 quick tips on how to deal with weight gain from consuming beans. Indeed, this should have been a separate video on its own, but we are here now, so I'm just going to go ahead. But I'm going to make it quick. The first is that we're going to adjust the way we prepare the beans. So if you are using oil, well, then you need to use very small amounts, okay? And try to avoid the heavy oils, like the oils with the saturated fats, you know, the palm oils, the lard, the butter, the ghee. Try and avoid those ones. Stick with the vegetable oils. But even then, you need to use very small amounts, okay? So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, just add salt to taste. You don't need a lot of salt in your beans, all right? Remember, salt attracts water, okay? So just salt to taste. Tip number 3, no sugar. You have no business adding sugar to beans. Seriously, you don't, okay? So forget about the baked beans formula. It's just not necessary in your home cooking. Tip number 4, eat your beans with vegetables. Replace the baked goods like the bread, the buns, the baguette, the roti. Replace them with vegetables. And I do this a lot. I eat my beans with carrots. I eat my beans with Brussels sprouts. I eat my beans with kale. And it works for me. Okay? And it will work for you too. Okay? So vegetables are low-calorie foods and they're not going to contribute a lot of calories to the calorie content of the entire food. So it's a good idea. have your beans with vegetables. Tip number 5. If you are going to have your beans with a starchy food, you want to make sure the starchy food constitutes just a quarter of the plate and no more. So, for instance, I do have my beans with potatoes, but I make sure that the potatoes occupy just a quarter of the plate, and that's enough for me. The rest of it will be beans. So because I know that the potato is going to contribute quite a lot of calories, so I need to limit how much potatoes I'll have. So it's a very important tip there. Wrong with this tip. Tip number 6, if you are struggling with weight gain when you eat beans, one thing you can do is to reduce the portion size of the beans itself. So if you are, say for instance, consuming usually 2.5 cups per meal, you may want to reduce that to 2 cups and see how you get on. And of course, if that's still not working, you may then need to come down to 1 cup. And then you may be asking, so what else do I add on the plate? Well, vegetables, really, okay? And that works. Just find out a happy medium that will work for you. Now, tip number 7. This tip is a little bit trivial because I break it a lot. And that is, if you are going to eat beans in the evening as dinner, try and eat your beans about 2 to 3 hours at least before you go to bed, because you'll still be active, physically active, moving around, so you're going to sort of burn some of the calories as opposed to just eating your beans and going to bed, say 30 minutes later. Although I'm guilty of that, but I don't have any issues with weight gain regarding beans, so I can get away with that. But if you are somebody who is struggling, then please ensure that you give a little bit of a distance between when you eat your beans and when you go to bed. So hopefully you got some value from this video. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up, please like the video, and also please share this video with your friends, family, and colleagues as usual. Now, are you somebody who gains weight with beans? If you belong to that camp, please let me know in the comment section. Or do you belong to the camp where you eat beans and it doesn't affect your weight at all? Also, please leave your comments down below if you belong to the second camp. Bottom line, beans are good for you. And please don't forget to eat your beans. You may just adjust how you eat the beans, but keep eating your beans. I think that's about it. Until next time, well, this is Dr. Joe signing out.